What up, everybody, and welcome to Baz on Blades. My name is Baz, and I talk about blades, and today I'm very happy to be featuring a brand that I have not featured for years here at Baz on Blades, and that is Reate knives. Today we have the new Reate PL-XF. This is part of a new series of pivot lock folders available from Reate knives in what we might consider a budget sort of price range, especially for this brand. Reate knives, they are Chinese made, but they are extremely highly respected as a company. Their product is highly respected. It is as good as anything made anywhere by anybody of any nationality, and it is priced accordingly. A majority of the Reate product that's out there right now is going to be in the north of $300 price range, and that is including all of the OEM work that Reate does for various custom makers. When you take a look at stuff like the Chavez knives, the Redemption, or however the hell you pronounce that, those are made by Reate. A very highly respected company, and I have owned a couple of Reate products, but I have never owned a budget model from them. And this knife is available in multiple iterations. I'm going to edit in some video right here. We'll go over to whitemountainknives.com where I did buy this. Thank you, Justin, once again. We'll edit in some video right here. We'll go through the entire lineup of this and the price range. All right, we're going to take a quick look here at the different variants of the Reate PL-XF that are currently available. We're here at White Mountain Knives. Again, that's where I pick this up and where I do the majority of my online shopping. So these are again available in either an aluminum handle with no speed holes. You can see there are no speed holes here, and that's at a price of $137. Which is out of stock. And then you've got the various micarta and G10 handled versions, and their different dressings, and you're going to see a price as low as $122. You can see all of these variants, different colors in the aluminum, in the micarta here, aluminum again. This is the version we're reviewing today, the black red micarta. They were $127 after a 10% discount. You're looking at $114. Got purple aluminum, you got blue aluminum, you've got tan G10, you've got a green micarta, and take a look at this green micarta here. You can see that the speed holes and all of those places that are trimmed in red on the model that we have for the review today are trimmed in black on that, and I think that looks pretty damn decent right there. We got some more tan G10, we got orange G10, we've got jade G10, all of these in a silver blade and hardware finish or black. And there's going to be a little bit of a price increase for that. So you see there's plenty of different variants of the PL-XF from Reate knives. Okay, so we've taken a look at the different variants of this knife in the price range. Obviously, what we have here is a black blade, black hardware variant. This one is in the black micarta with red, I'm assuming G10 trim. I think it looks stunning. This knife was $127, and then you take away a 10% discount code from White Mountain Knives, and it was $114. I think that is absolutely a steal for this knife. You don't find that many pivot lock knives out on the market, and you don't find many knives made with the quality that Reate typically produces their product. Let's see here. Let's go ahead and bring out the packaging on this. I think it's worth looking at. It is a beautiful sort of two-tone black box here, magnetic closure box. And here we have some labeling: PL-XF, handle black micarta, red G10, nitro V, and it says copper PVD, but it is obviously not copper PVD. And this model with the black micarta and red G10 is not available in copper PVD. So that's a misprint right there. And that means that this knife is now worth $10,000 since it has a misprint on it. It's like the Jenny biplane stamp, if you know anything about that, for insider geek information for stamp collectors. Inside this box, you're going to find this Reate sticker here, which does match the coloring on the knife. I don't know if that's normal for that or if it's just like one sticker and just happens to match the colorway I got. We've got a Reate branded microfiber cleaning cloth. We've got a cover card here. And this does act as your certificate of authenticity. Model PL-XF. It is a flipper, 7.8 inch open length, nitro V for your blade, black PVD for your blade finish. So that is correct, where on the box it's not. 3.4 inch blade, then black micarta pivot lock, 5.5 ounces. And a designer who, Alvin Lee. Okay, great. Additionally, you will find a small baggie in a side compartment, and that does have a couple of different screws in it and a replacement spring for the pivot lock. So I think, personally, Baz on Blades thinks that a combination of what we're going to go over with the knife itself and the packaging, it feels very premium for a quote-unquote budget knife, even though it is over $100, and that is not going to be budget to some people. When you have a family and you and your wife both work full-time jobs, you got 2 car payments, you got a house payment, and you got 2 or 3 kids, every one of them plays sports, they all need new shoes at the same time. Oh, damn, there goes the hot water heater, it just went out. Car needs tires, blah, blah, blah. Sometimes in life, a $114 knife is not budget. It is an absolute premium, okay, to some people. So take that on a sliding scale. As I refer to this as a budget knife, in the overall scheme of the knife enthusiast world and the money that we tend to spend on knives, this is a budget offering from a brand that typically does not offer a budget product at all. And I'm going to say straight up, as far as competition within the $100 range of the quote-unquote budget world of these Chinese, the high-end Chinese manufacturers, this knife is a step above anybody else. The nicest Civivi knife that I own or have handled and reviewed, this is a definite step above that. And I'll point out some small things that cumulatively, that's what makes it a step above your typical, your $100 bearing pivot, premium budget Chinese knives from the various different brands. So let's knock out what size this thing. We'll get into some specs. This is a sort of medium full size EDC type of knife. You're looking at a 3.4 inch blade length. That's 8.5 centimeters. Blade stock thickness, nice and thick at 154 thousandths of an inch or 3.9 millimeters. Blade width, 1.13 inches or 28.8 millimeters. Handle length, 4.5 inches or right at 11.5 centimeters. Handle thickness, slightly thicker than you would see in a folder at 621 thousandths of an inch or 15.7 millimeters. Handle width at the widest, 1.21 inches or 31 millimeters. The closed width, pretty compact on this. We're going to do it up here at the pivot and include the flipper tab. you're looking at 1.41 inches or 35.9 millimeters. Overall length, 7 7/8 of an inch or 20 centimeters. Stop pin diameter, 118 thousandths of an inch or 3.01 millimeters. Behind the edge thickness, 18 thousandths of an inch or 0.46 millimeters. Handle to blade ratio, a very good 0.75. And your weight, a little bit chunky and heavy at your weight. Not too bad, but you do feel it when you handle it. 5.22 ounces or 148 grams on a 3.4 inch blade. That definitely does not fit in the 1 ounce per inch of a blade length of these super lightweight sort of carry deal. But I think the extra weight, while you grab it, it does not, you don't think, oh, damn, that's heavy. You think, okay, that feels substantial. Okay, there is a very substantial feel to this knife overall, that weight being part of it. So let's talk about materials. It's, you know what, it's okay for a mid-range sort of budgety knife. We're looking at a Nitro V for your blade steel. Straight up out of New Jersey steel bearing territory right there. That is a modified version of AEBL. It is a stainless steel, and it overall, as far as performance goes, it gives good wear resistance or edge retention, excellent impact resistance or toughness, and good corrosion resistance. It has a reputation of being a tough stainless steel, especially in that sort of mid-range area. I believe, as far as toughness goes, it's going to outperform all of your common sort of 14Cs, 440Cs, your AR, RPM 9s, and steels like that. I have had good results out of Nitro V. I have found it to take a keen and fine edge, showing that it has a fine grain structure. It polishes well, so it's good for a polished edge. It seems to retain its initial razor edge decently. It is a moderately aggressive cutter. It tends to be, in my opinion, a very slicey steel, and even at 18 thousandths behind the edge, which is starting to get into the slicey realm, but in the modern day, it may seem a little thick to some people. I mean, we're seeing knives that are 12, 15 thousandths behind the edge commonly now. So this may seem a little thicker, but keep in mind, it puts it right in the range of what a Spyderco Paramilitary 2 would be behind the edge. And since we've got that out, let's do a size comparison. Let's take a look size-wise on these knives. They are falling right into the same size category. The PL-XF is slightly shorter than the Spyderco Paramilitary 2. We'll pull that out, and then what do we have here? Another one. We've got another fine American-made product there for Kershaw Knockout, and you can see we're falling right into the same basic size range. So we are firmly in that sort of medium to medium large EDC size range. Let's get into the materials on the handle now. This variant, of course, is in the black micarta, which looks absolutely stupidly awesome. It looks so good. Now, I don't have this oil down right now. I did experiment with putting oil on it, seeing how it did. If you oil this, it does totally blacken up, and it really makes that red stand out even more than it does right now. But after I carried it in my pocket, of course, your pocket material scrubs the oil off of this micarta, and this is what you end up with. You end up with this black denim sort of look to it with the layers showing through as it's radially machined. And even if it's a little lighter when it's not oiled, this red still really pops with all the black material. That looks so good. Again, we've got a canvas micarta here, red G10 inlays to detail this knife in. Your over stainless liners. It does have an aluminum backspacer. It features a stamped titanium pocket clip. The pocket clip is titanium. All of your hardware is impressively nice. It is all T8 hardware, and look at this screw that's holding this pocket clip down in its recess here, which is tightly machined so you don't get any squirm with that pocket clip even though you're using a single mounting screw. Nice chunky hardware, repeated, reflected up here on the front side with a filler plate for your recess for ambidextrous pocket clip placement. It just, material wise, in this price range, I don't have any issue with anything at all. You're in stainless small parts for those screws and whatnot. The pivot is a little more complex than normal to talk about because your locking mechanism is contained within the pivot, so it's not just a male and female side of basically clamping hardware holding it together. The mechanics of the lock system are all in there as well. It's going to be mostly steel. Okay, it's going to be steel on steel lockup. And what can I tell you about a pivot lock? Don't get all crazy. A pivot lock is nothing but a plunge lock, something like you would find in this Bestech Swordfish button lock. A plunge lock is a plunge lock. It presses down, it plunges down. There is a conical section at the base of that lock that locks into a section on the blade. When you push it away, out of the way, it frees the blade. Okay, that's how a button lock works. And that is basically what you have here in a pivot lock, except that button with its conical base that locks into a slot on the blade. It is now centralized within the blade itself. And you can see here, that is a very sort of thick sort of section there around the base of that blade. Okay. One thing about this, I don't know if you can see it here, but if you could, the bearings that are on the pivot of this, typically the race and the bearings, the diameter, let's see if we can see that here. I don't have enough light, but you can see the difference in what we're looking at as far as the bulk of that pivot area around the blade stock and the pivot itself. The bearing race and bearings, the diameter is larger on this. And I think that really helps in making it feel more stable and substantial. As you increase the diameter of the bearing race and you get those bearings out, it helps in that sort of lateral stress of a folding knife. Now you've got the radial play here as it rotates around the pivot point. Then you've got the lateral sort of play here. When you increase the diameter of your bearing surface here, whether it is actual bearings or bushings, either one, it strengthens that pivot a little bit. So I like that. That's sort of a side of going to that type of lockup and having to have the bigger diameter bearing race. I have not taken this apart. I didn't see any reason to. I'm just not that big into taking stuff apart that doesn't need to be taken apart. But trust me, it can be taken apart, and there will be parts in there that you will have to keep up with. Let's see here. We got materials covered. Let's talk about fit and finish on this knife, and we'll close her up a little bit there, and we're going to get up here super duper close. Let's look at those G10 inlays. Okay, G10 inlays on that black micarta that looks so damn good. I can't hardly stand to look at it. As expected from Reate knives, if I got right up on that with a magnifying glass, I might find a flaw somewhere. But it's just as far as looking at it right here, and I have my glasses on. I'm not seeing any flaws. Feeling across it, there's no obvious joiner or anything. The great thing about doing something like this is you can use a black epoxy when you do these inserts and stuff, and because it's a black epoxy against a black material, you're not going to see an epoxy line around all of these where they're glued together. It's going to blend together nicely. I expect that the green micarta version that has the black trim around everything, I expect it to look exactly the same as far as quality goes and to be very, very attractive. I'm going to tell you right now, this is a great gift knife right here. Between the premium looking packaging and the knife itself, the mechanics of a pivot lock, and it's not being common on the market, this is an excellent gift knife for somebody you want to give a really nice knife to but not break the bank. Fit and finish on everything on this knife. Let's look at the blade grinds. All of the blade grinds, the primary, the swedge grind, the secondary grind or edge bevel, all look really good. The tip is pointy, pokey, piercy. It catches instantly. Yeah, it catches instantly. It's nice and sharp. We are very minimal on blade markings. Hey, it's Nitro V. There you go. And Reate up front. I want to take a look at some more things on the handle here. And we're going to look at the liners. The liners are nice and thick. They are extensively weight relieved, which is good because even though this is a sort of a chunky little knife at 5.2 ounces or 148 grams. The liners are substantial. They are substantial enough to where they could machine. There is a flat, wide chamfer machined around those scales. So they are proud. The liners, I said scales, I meant to say liners, I apologize. The liners are proud of the scales, and then they have that chamfer on it, so you have a slightly radiused scale going into a nice chamfer here on this edge of the micarta, rolling into a wide chamfer on the exposed liner, the proud liner. That is finely finished. A recessed flush backspacer in aluminum. You can see the fit and finish coming around right here. There's no gaps in anything. I've found zero finish flaws on this knife at all. It is beautifully made. It is beautifully made. Just everything about this, and like I said, it is most definitely a step up from anybody else's budget offerings in the $100 price point. Just doing these inlays seamlessly, flawlessly machined, to me, if I had to do that in my shop, I could replicate that in my shop, but I could not do it this cleanly. Of course, I'm not set up with CNC equipment either. It would be all hand done. I think that at the price point, as far as fit and finish goes, I just don't know that you're going to do any better. I just don't know that at all. Let's go into the action. As you can see here, it is totally, it's just free as far as the pivot goes on those bearings, and I have tightened that pivot. When it came out of the box, it was too free. It had zero blade play of any type, but it was just to free. I mean, that is instant drop with zero drag right there after I tighten the pivot just a little bit. If you buy one of these, if you hand it to somebody that is less experienced in knife handling, you need to say something to them, because that's a nearly 4 millimeter thick blade stock on a 3.4-inch blade. There is enough weight in that blade under that total free fall that if you had your fingers across here, it would cut your finger if it fell against it. Probably cut you down to the bone. So you want to be careful as far as that goes. The action is crisp. There's plenty of detent there as the lock itself works as the detent. What you're feeling in detent on a button lock or pivot lock like this is the strength of the spring, basically, that is in that system. And there is a strong enough spring in here to supply that spring pressure of that lock base, as the lock base is the basic locking surface. The plunge base is the locking surface. That spring that pushes that button up, that you have to push against to actuate the button. Okay, you've got the button here. You've got to push that button down. You're pushing against spring pressure. That is a nicely stout spring. And that spring, in the closed position, this button, the shaft, the lock, the spring is pushing it up right now, but it's not allowed to seat within the blade and lock it because the cutout is different. Once you open it and that blade rotates around, it's going to expose the cutout that lock bar or lock plunge will fit up inside, and when it pops up in there, it locks that. That spring strength is the strength of your detent as far as opening it. They went with a nice stout spring. It gives you a nice detent feel, and it makes it for an excellent flipper as far as the opening of the action. Now, as far as closing, it's just completely guillotine, drop shut, even tightened up like it is. So you can use a flipper, you can use a button to open. I'm a little caught up here. I've only got about 6 or 8 inches here in between the camera and the tabletop, but it is a fun little fidget guy for sure. Perfect centering on this thing. There is no blade play or anything in any direction. I've not had any issues. The one thing I will say, this is not a negative to me. I actually prefer this on any button lock, any plunge lock, any pivot lock, anything like that. I prefer the slightest tick of a lock stick. That prevents accidentally unlocking that, to me, under normal use. So let's see what we got here. You hear that? That's just the slightest little tick. That's the slightest little tick of stick right there, and I actually very much prefer that in this type of lock. Now, let's talk about safety with this. We do have a safety on this. It is not a secondary lock. It is not a secondary lock. Do not treat it as such. It is only a safety for the primary lock. If we move it into its lock position, it will prevent you from totally depressing and unlocking this blade. But it does get the conical base of this lock out of the blade enough to where there is a little bit of play. Okay? That is a little bit of play. That is because the conical base of that lock, as it moves up within the locking surface, this safety allows that to come just drop a little bit, so you're up on a smaller part of the radius of that cone, and it allows that blade just a tad bit of play. Now, it's not pushed out enough to where it unlocks the blade, but it's just a little tick, and that's why I say it is a safety and not a secondary lock. It is not locked on that device. Okay, it is absolutely not locked. That is just a safety. It's an interference type of safety. It keeps you from depressing this enough to unlock the knife under use. And then if you do unlock it under use, I mean, that's what you've got. You've just got drop shut guillotine action. So you've got to have a secondary safety for that. Treat it as a secondary safety for the lock, not a secondary lock, and you should be fine. Beyond that, it is well done. It has a very nice feeling little detent on it. Very crisp, very mechanical feeling, high quality feeling. Now, I've said this knife feels substantial and it feels high quality, and there's a lot of little things that go into that. The weight is one thing. At 5.2 ounces, it's a little weightier than, say, something like this Paramilitary 2 or even this Knockout in aluminum scales. It's a little bit, just a little bit heavier than that. It's a little bit thicker on the handle here, about 1/10 of an inch beyond that 1/2 inch norm. What did I say that was in millimeters? It's 15.7 millimeters. You're usually going to go about 14 millimeters around that 1/2 inch mark, right? I think that's what it is. So it's just a little bit thicker. It's just a little bit heavier. It's got no play in the lockup. It's got a thick, almost 4 millimeter blade stock. All those things sort of combine to make this feel like sort of a more substantial knife than you would expect for its size. Just that feel, it's a feel of quality overall. Excuse me. So let's look at Ergo's utility use, and then we'll get out of this review. This is a sort of a high-tipped, moderate drop point with a swedge on the back of it. Piercing, it's going to act much like a spear point, but it does give you all of this belly right here to work in. Look at how big this belly is. This knife is overeating. That is a big old belly. It needs to go on a diet. You do have some straight, fine edge here if you want to choke up and take advantage of this forward finger choil to get up on that. To work some material finely. You do have all of this belly for rotating, slashing cut. You do have enough of a tip here for piercing. It's a very, very utilitarian blade profile with a nice high flat grind, 18 thousandths behind the edge. So again, that's going to put you right around the range of what a Paramilitary 2 is. They typically go about 18 or 20 thousandths behind the edge. So you're going to be in the same cutting performance basically there. No issues with the utilitarian usefulness of that blade profile or grind. As far as the ergos of the handle, it is a good middle of the road handle design. It is ergonomic enough to make it comfortable, but it is very basic and wide open. It is not restricted from any very pronounced finger choils or anything like that. This cut in behind the pivot acts as a finger choil, but it's not really a finger choil. It's just a cut in here, and then it comes down, flares down through the length of the handle here. So it gives you that sort of choil safety to keep you from slipping up on the blade in combination with that flipper tab, but it's not restrictive in here that in a way that only certain hand sizes or finger sizes or something are going to work with it. The handle itself is wide open. In my large size hands with chunky medium length fingers, this is the fit right here. My thumb falls absolutely naturally on the length of excellent jimping on the back here. I wish I would have gone maybe one more jimp, one more trough of jimp in there lengthwise, but it is plenty enough. It is plenty aggressive enough, putting some pressure in it right here. Let's take a look at what we got on the finger right here. You can see there's plenty of depth to that jimping. It works very well. Sorry guys, my allergies are bothering me this morning. I'm all stopped up and everything. Trying to talk about this Reate PL-XF. Not a very good name. Not a very good name for a very good knife. I want to take a look at some of this machining on this micarta, and then we'll get out of here. I love this beautiful radius on this inside edge. It is different from the back. This is a flat chamfer on the back side here. As you hold your knife, the part of your hand that's wrapped around the handle is on the inside edge here as your fingers curl around that handle. That's where you want that rounded radius. On the back, it's not needed to be rounded. You can see this flat plane chamfer right here that goes around. That's perfectly fine on the spine side of that handle. Little details like that. Look at the raised pad for the pivot area right here. That raised pad, the extra thickness on the handle, you've got that pivot lock mechanism in there. It needs a little more room. That's the reason we're seeing that. You can see you've got a raised pad on the back as well. Like I said, you're lightly radially machined here. Very lightly. Let's see if we can capture that. You can see it's very lightly radially machined. You can see that in how the layers are revealed here. Really, the last layer that's revealed is right here. And you can see in the top where it's dark, we're not cutting absolutely through that layer. So that is your peak of that radius as far as that being machined. Then you've got the inside edge here. You've got the chamfer on the outside edge. Your liners are chamfered. Very well finished. Let's take a look down in here. Let's see. Okay, you can see there is extensive milling in that. Which is a good thing, because this would have weighed over 6 ounces without that, I'm sure. And I think that would have been too heavy. This feels just right, sort of chunky, substantial in the hands. To some people it may feel a little heavy, but I don't care because this knife is badass. I did choose the most truck stoppy sort of finish, and it looks killer. It does not look cheap at all. It is so well made, and the materials are so attractive. The fit and finish is so good, and the action is so good. Everything about this knife is Reate. Everything is Reate. No, it's not a $400 Reate. It's a $127 Reate that I got for $114 in an acceptable blade steel, Nitro V, in some beautiful micarta and some nice detailing on a very ergonomic and well done handle. Titanium pocket clip that is excellent. This is an excellent pocket clip. No, it's not deep carry, but it goes in and out of the pocket so well. It gives you just enough to pinch onto to pull it out of the pocket. It's not overly large. It's not overly high in the hand. I can feel there's a pocket clip there, but it is absolutely zero hot spotting. This is just an incredible knife for the money. The engineering feat aside of doing a pivot lock and doing it well, pivot locks, plunge locks, button locks, they are harder to do. In my opinion, they are harder to do on mass production knives. I've seen that in the finished product from different brands where I've gotten pivot locks that were not exactly right. This pivot lock is exactly right. It is everything that I would want out of this lock system and nothing more, nothing less. It works perfectly. The action is stupid on this thing. And Baz on Blades is going to recommend this knife. I'm just repeating the same stuff over and over. Let's get out of this right meow. As always, thank you very much for taking the time to watch one of my long-ass videos. God bless all of you. And yeah, we will talk to you again.